Welcome to The Football Word. I'm Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox, fresh off his vacation, so he is back.
I'm back. My voice isn't completely back, but
Voice
I'm
isn't
back.
back.
I'm physically back.
Physically back, not audibly back, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's
audibly
the right
about 50%. But today, the NFL annual meeting starts up. It actually started up last night, Sunday night. That's when coaches, owners, everyone started to congregate in Arizona. We are still here in Massachusetts to bring you the football word, but there's a lot going on at the meeting this year, and obviously the big news, we'll get around to this later, could be a Jimmy Garoppolo trade, could be a Malcolm Butler trade. The two sides could kind of talk on that. But one thing that Patriots fans are very interested in, or should be very interested in this year, is that one of the proposals, one of these rule change proposals, could potentially bring back the Patriots' Patriot Uniforms. And this is because, I forgot who it was. It's the Eagles, I believe.
Yes, Eagles.
It was their proposal.
They have the different color green
They have
helmet.
a different color green helmet. So they want teams to start being able to use different colored helmets again. And this makes a lot of sense. For some reason, back in 2013, the NFL changed the rules, said that teams can only wear one color helmet per season. And this is despite the fact that some players go through 15 or 20 helmets in a season. The NFL was trying to do something with safety on this, but never really made a lot of sense.
Yeah, this was like the height of the concussion era, really, where it was really kind of ramping up into the controversy that it was. Obviously, it's still an issue, but this was, I think, just kind of a dumb, I don't think many people agree with it at the time. Like you see college teams, Oregon goes through 6 or 7 helmets in 6 or 7 weeks. And then I think it was just kind of a move where the league was like, oh yeah, in an effort to protect safety, we're going to make sure you only wear one color helmet. It's like, come on, that doesn't make any sense.
I guess the idea was that new helmets aren't as safe as old helmets, but even that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. If that's the case, make the new helmets a little bit safer, maybe break them in first or something.
Exactly.
But the Patriots would be able to wear white helmets again, so they would be able to wear their red Pat Patriots 80s throwbacks. And
glorious.
I think that would be a pretty welcome addition to the repertoire for the Patriots, for their fans. I think that everyone likes those uniforms, even if it doesn't bring back the finest memories of the Patriots dynasty era. But I'm all for it. I think it would be great.
I'm all for it as well. And something I noticed this season that I didn't really notice before is that I don't really like the Patriots' current uniforms. When they had the color rush ones, they were one of the few teams that actually got away with having a pretty good-looking color rush uniform.
Nice.
When I was looking at those, I was like, I think I actually like these better than their current ones.
Yeah.
They're not ugly by any means, but they're just kind of outdated. I mean, they've had them since what, 99, 2000?
2000. Yep.
2000. They're just they look a little 90s-ish.
They're very dated.
They updated them a little bit when they switched to Nike, where they got rid of some of like the shiny silver and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely time for a change, and I feel like they want to go back to the red. Like you see, they still sell so much red Patriots gear. Like we'll be at Patriots games or training camp. You see more of the old red jerseys than you do of the current blue ones.
Yeah.
I think fans want them back. I think the team wants to bring them back too. So I'm sure they would love this rule change.
Yeah, the new uniforms are kind of the worst kind of 90s. It's like a late 90s where everything got very dark and there's like weird.
There's no
like,
teal and purple, but it's
no,
still. It's just
there's like weird stripes everywhere on the uniforms, and that's really what the Patriots are dealing with right now. I don't think they can change their uniforms until Brady and Belichick are gone.
We were talking about that this season.
But as soon as they're gone, I think they do go back to red. They'll probably go back to some sort of updated version of the Pat Patriot logo, because if you look a little too close to the Pat Patriot logo, it looks a little wonky.
I think that's why they ditched it in the first place too, because that's so hard to recreate on T-shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah, his face looks a little deformed. It looks a little like, I don't know, who's the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Frodo something. I don't know. It looks like him, I think. But yeah, that would be great. If they're not going to bring them back forever, then at least once or twice a season.
Yeah, mix it up.
Get those red uniforms back in there. Bill Belichick is in Arizona right now, but he will not be attending this year's coaches breakfast. He says that he has a scouting obligation to attend. I don't think anyone's really missing too much on this one. Bill Belichick, in the past during these coaches breakfasts, basically gives one-word answers to anything. If you ask him about any of the signings they've brought in, any of the trades they've made, his answer is essentially, we'll wait to see when we bring them in. I don't know what they can bring to our team at this point. So he's not very helpful. Last year was, of course, the time where he pushed all the recorders away from himself so he could, have some elbow room. So, I mean, I'm sure it's disappointing to all the writers who travel all the way to Arizona to potentially get, that 45 minutes with Bill Belichick. But he's not going to be there.
Yeah, I think the best development ever to come out of a Bill Belichick coach's breakfast was the picture, I believe Jeff Howe of the Boston Herald snapped it, of him just sitting there with the orange juice while there's 100 reporters around him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Jeff had the stats too in his column today. I think he said, I don't know, or we'll see, like 46 times last year. So yeah, not really missing much. It would be cool to get his kind of sense, because we haven't had a chance to talk to him since all these trades and signings went down. It would be cool to get his take on it, but I mean, we're going to have to wait a little longer. Robert Kraft is scheduled to speak, though. I believe he's speaking this afternoon, Monday afternoon, and we'll hear from most of the other NFL coaches, so we might be able to get some sense from the other side, from the Colts and from the Saints and these kind of guys, the other side of these deals.
Yeah, we'll see what Sean Payton has to say about Malcolm Butler. We'll see if the Browns will say anything about Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if they really can because of the tampering. But Malcolm Butler is technically a free agent, so I think the Saints could talk about him.
Yeah, Sean Payton hasn't been shy about praising him either.
No, he hasn't been shy about talking about him. But Belichick, this scouting obligation, it seems like he'll probably either be going to Florida State, Florida, Texas, one of those pro days, maybe Miami of Ohio. But yeah, it's kind of inconvenient for these coaches to have to do these coaches' breakfasts and then also have pro days on the same days, especially for a guy like Bill Belichick who really likes to go out on the scouting trail. You can't totally blame him. If he really wants to talk to a player from Florida State or Florida or one of these places, then yeah, it probably makes more sense for him to be there than to talk to a bunch of jabroni reporters for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
not to say anything about the reporters who are in Arizona. We're jabronis
we are
too.
jabroni reporters that aren't even in Arizona.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, Belichick is one of the more hands-on coaches in the league from a player scouting perspective because he is basically the GM and the coach of the Patriots. So it's in his best interest to be there with these college guys. We've seen him out at half dozen or so pro days already, and I'm sure he'll continue that straight through the draft.
Yeah, he's been at Ohio State, he was at Michigan State, he was at Vanderbilt, he's been some other places. So yeah, it's something that he likes to do, and he goes there with his kids, he goes there with some of the other coaches, and yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a better use of his time, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I know I probably shouldn't be the person saying that, but whatever. So yeah, let's get into Garoppolo and Butler, because those are two of the moves that the Patriots could potentially make this week. They could start getting into discussions on them. I guess just first off, what's your prediction on both? What do you think happens with Jimmy Garoppolo? What do you think happens with Malcolm Butler?
Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he does not get moved. The sense that we're hearing, I believe it was someone from ESPN Cleveland reported that the Browns are going to make one final push this week at the annual meeting. Just throw as much as they're willing to throw and see if the Patriots bite. From everything we've heard, especially from Adam Schefter, who really hasn't wavered at all in his opinion that the Patriots will not trade Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for now. We haven't really heard any indication that they will. We know teams are trying as they should. With Butler, I'm less sure. It's really such a strange situation with the RFA rights and where he would have to sign and then trade, and the fact that they can't really negotiate. They can't officially negotiate a trade until he's signed, even though I'm sure they'll have some back channel dealings and whatnot. But I don't know. If I have to guess, I'll say he is traded, but I'm not very confident in that at all.
I'm going to say he's traded, and I'm going to get even – I'll go specific. Who cares if I'm wrong? I'm going to say that he is going to be traded for the Saints' second and third round pick. So that would be 42nd overall, and that would be 76th overall. I really don't think there's any chance the Patriots will get that 11th overall pick out of the Saints. I know that Patriots fans have their hopes up. I'm willing to eat crow if I'm wrong on this, because if I'm wrong, then the Patriots got one hell of a deal for Malcolm Butler. I don't think that Malcolm Butler holds as much value as Brandon Cooks, and this is something that we talked about last week. I think the fact that Brandon Cooks is under contract for 2 more seasons, I think the fact that the Saints could basically get Malcolm Butler for free if they waited another year, I don't think that giving up the 11th overall pick is worth just ensuring that you get this guy in and getting him in a year early. I think that it's probably a little bit more realistic that it's either going to be that 32nd overall pick or a second and third round pick. And Belichick, even if he gets that 32nd overall pick, he'll probably wind up trading it down anyway. So he might as well just get the second and third in the first place. But that's my prediction. We'll see what happens. I do think he eventually gets traded. I think it's gone too far at this point. It would be a little bit awkward for him to come back. If the Saints are really serious about this, I think a deal can be done.
What do you think the Patriots fan reaction would be like if they traded Butler for a second round pick and a third round pick? I feel like people would be pleased with a first round pick, even if it's that number 32. But I can see people being very angry if you trade your top cornerback for a second and third round pick.
I agree. I think that Patriots fans will be mad, and you're totally right about the fact that, even if, the trade value chart adds up and the second and third round pick is worth the same as the first round pick, I think that there's just something about getting a first round pick that sounds a lot better than getting a package of picks. So I think the Patriots fans will be upset. I think they have a right to be, quite frankly. I mean, it's Bill Belichick kind of knows what he's doing, so you can't criticize him too heavily, but I think that this is a scenario where your defense would be a lot better with Malcolm Butler in there in 2017. I don't know what they're going to get out of a second and third round pick. It kind of depends, obviously, on who they get, because if you get a guy like Joe Thuney, then that'll help your team out a lot. If you get a guy like Cyrus Jones, then it won't help your team out too much. And, that's a third round pick versus a second round pick. So I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what the reaction is. And I had something else to say, but my mind fluttered away, and I don't know what it was.
I mean, they need to.
We're just being honest with you guys here.
We're in the trust tree.
Yeah, we're in the trust tree. I don't know what I was going to say.
They need to do something, though, I think, because I don't think they can wait until pick 72 before they make any selections in this draft. That's just way too far to miss out on all that talent at the top level of the draft, even though they haven't had the best success with second rounders and even some of their first rounders. But 70 picks is a long way to wait. But I don't know what other they don't have many other real trade chips other than they have a lot of picks, but they have a lot of low picks. Other than Malcolm Butler.
It would have to be either Garoppolo or Butler, and I actually do remember what I was going to say because my mind is a steel trap. I think the Patriots fans probably would have expected to get more out of Chandler Jones and to get more out of Jamie Collins. I know that a lot of Patriots fans were pretty mad when the Patriots traded Jamie Collins for what was essentially a conditional third-round pick. The reaction wasn't quite as strong when they traded Chandler Jones for the second-round pick and Jonathan Cooper. I'm not quite sure why. I think that just Chandler Jones seemed to have – Patriots fans just cared a little bit less about him for one reason or another. I think that everyone kind of acknowledged the fact that he was slightly overrated. He didn't completely – his full game didn't live up to that double-digit sack. I don't know if it's potential or glory or whatever it was that he had in here. So – I don't know. I mean, there's kind of a track record of the Patriots not getting first-round picks for these guys. And I don't know if Malcolm Butler is worth more than Chandler Jones because they're both basically only under contract for one more season. And obviously, Malcolm Butler would come probably with this built-in contract, so that might add a little bit more value. But I don't know. Is it that much more value?
That is an interesting point. It's interesting to look at Butler in relation to Jamie Collins and Chandler Jones. Because when you look back, those are guys that you thought the Patriots could get first-round picks maybe for, because they were two of the more highly regarded players on their defense. And if they didn't fetch it, obviously there's contract situations are different between the players. But that's a very good point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it all goes down, and if it doesn't go down, then we'll never know. But one final thing here, now that we're talking about the annual meeting, we talked about this a lot on Thursday's podcast, Between the Tackles. Check that out on YouTube, wherever podcasts are found, everywhere. But were there any other proposals, rule change proposals, that really stood out to you as we're kind of entering this annual meeting phase and as all of these proposals will go to a vote?
Well, my favorite was the Redskins proposal that they can opt out of color rush games if the uniforms are too ugly. But the one that I think that I would actually like to see implemented is, I believe it was the Redskins that proposed this too. Kicking a kickoff through the uprights moves the ball up 5 yards. So you would start on the opposing team would start on the 20-yard line rather than the 25-yard line. So move the ball back 5 yards. I think that's I think you wrote this morning. It's a little XFL-ish, a little arena league-ish. It's a gimmick, but I think it just could be cool to add some intrigue into a play. The kick return is really kind of. It's not a huge part of the game anymore. You don't see many electrifying kick returners, and I think if you place a little bit of that intrigue on the actual kickers, especially if you have a strong-legged kicker like Steven Gostkowski is with the Patriots, I think it could be a cool little wrinkle. It's obviously the fact that it's only 5 yards. I like that. It's not a huge. It's not like you get a point for kicking it through or anything like that. But I think it could be a cool little thing to have.
It adds more value to the kickers, especially
because they're complaining now. Like the kickers don't feel like their kickoff ability is utilized as much as it was in the past.
So now if you can I think they'd have some fun with it, be able to boot it right through the uprights there. Couple of them stood out to me. One of them we talked about way too much probably already on the podcast, but that was that the NFL is talking about shortening regular season overtime to 10 minutes and shortening preseason overtime to 10 minutes. I think that regular season overtime needs to stay at 15 minutes because we don't need more ties than we already have. Yep. I think that preseason overtime should just be abolished altogether. And there were two other Washington proposals that I thought were pretty interesting.
Yeah, Redskins were real busy on this
one. They were. I mean, good for them. Yeah. I think that the NFL could use some tweaking. So one of them was to eliminate the mandatory cut down to 75 active list players. What happens is before the fourth preseason game, NFL rosters have to be trimmed from 90 players to 75 players, and then a few days later, they're trimmed down to 53 players. It doesn't really make sense to ever cut them down to 75 because you need those additional players for the fourth preseason game when there's no starters in there. So these backups are basically having to play the whole game. Fourth preseason game is kind of pointless altogether, but just there's no point in having that middle cut down between 53 and 90.
Why is this rule in place in the first place? Do you have any idea why it was implemented? Because it just doesn't make much sense. I mean, is it just so you don't have to cut 40 players on one day?
Yeah, I guess it gets some players out there earlier. I really don't know. It's probably just something that's been around forever and no one's ever thought to change it. But Washington, God bless them, are trying to change that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a bottom of the roster player, I think you have to like that too, because it'll give you
one extra game.
It will allow teams to sit even more of those starters, so they don't want to get hurt in that last preseason game, and it'll give a guy who maybe is number 77 on one team, he goes out and has a great fourth preseason game, maybe he gets picked up somewhere else.
Yeah, no, and we saw it this year. I think it was DJ Foster had a great fourth preseason game, and he actually wound up making the roster. So. Crazier things have happened. The other proposal that Washington sent out there that I thought was pretty interesting was to place a player who has suffered a concussion and who has not been cleared to play on the club's exempt list and be replaced by a player on the club's practice squad on a game-by-game basis until the player is cleared to play. This makes 100% sense.
Love it.
Teams should not be punished because a player has a concussion. Teams should not be rushing players back from a concussion. Players should not be compelled to rush themselves back from a concussion. This would give them a few extra weeks, and it would give some practice squad players some reps in there with the actual team. So I think that's a win for everyone. I don't know why that wouldn't be passed. The NFL doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense sometimes. So. Who knows if it'll actually get passed?
Hey,
but
you want to help concussions? Take away the helmet rule. Put this one in. Just slide it in and out.
Exactly. Take away the helmet rule. Put this one in, and then that whole 5 extra minutes of overtime. Roger Goodell was talking about that on I think it was Peter King's podcast, trying to explain how they came up with that. And it was what's his name? The Colts old GM, Bill's old GM. Bill Polian. Bill Polian just came up to Roger Goodell and was like, "Hey, how about we do this?" And Roger Goodell was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then just put it up for vote when it doesn't make any sense.
It's a completely unnecessary move.
Yeah, and I guess he was saying that it gets teams to try to win during the actual game rather than during overtime, during the 60 minutes of action. Then they don't get into overtime, and then I don't know. It just all it's going to do is encourage more ties. That extra 5 minutes of play is not putting any players at any more risk than anything else that's going on. Eliminate the preseason. I'm just ranting at this point. So I think
if you want more on this subject, listen to our 45-minute conversation on it on Thursday's podcast.
I get fired up about preseason overtime. I'm sorry, guys, but I think that will do it for us for the day. We'll see what comes out of these annual meetings. And we will be back in the studio on Thursday with Michaela Vernava for Between the Tackles. So watch out for that and read everything that we are writing on NESN.com.
Yeah. Hopefully my voice will be back then as well.
Hopefully it's at least back up to 80% by that point.
I'll take it. I'll take 80.
So we will see you guys on Thursday.